Tony and I are going to kind of bounce around back and forth and play off each other a little bit. And the more you interact and ask questions, the more direction that we can have. So I'm going to start with just a little bit of an intro about how me as the Meathead football coach, because I'm sure a lot of you are like, man, I really like what I'm reading, but I don't know if I can take the dive. You know, I've been doing it this way for so long. And I was that guy from playing days on. And so I finally found the date, because I always tell people that I read these articles right before the 2017 season, but we were almost already pot committed into the season that we didn't start into this right away, but I had sent it to my other coaches. And then as the season went along in 2017, we started adding in principles, and we started going in pads less, and we went on to win our last 6 games, and we got beat on the last play of the game. We didn't get a 2-point conversion in the second round. And then we went on the next year to play for the state championship when we went all in on it. So the part that really stood out to me, because we had success, but we'd hit kind of a lull period, was when Tony wrote in there, high school football practices look the same way they did 40 years ago. You know, we stretched, we did agilities, or we called them county fair, special teams, indie group, live team, and we conditioned at the end. And that's exactly what we were doing. And I was looking for something. I was looking for some type of a spark at that time. And so I reached out to Tony, and that's how, he and I kind of got going on this, and it's really kind of blew up. But we wouldn't be in this position if it wasn't for Coach Holler, for sure. So out of all of that, we started putting together just some basics, and Coach's Feed the Cats. I think, who knows, thousands of people use his idea. Some of them call it Feed the Cats, some don't. We kind of changed it to be our version of it, and we called it Relentless Rest Repeat, because that's what we wanted our kids to do: play relentless for those 5 or 6 seconds, then rest and repeat that all game long. And so we kind of listed some basics, and like I said, I'm just going to kind of intro this, and then we're going to dive into it. So our goal of sprint-based football is speed. Most years, you try to get a base of speed in the summer, and then by the end of football, you're just trying to hang on for dear life. That's not what we're doing. We're focusing on speed in everything that we do, and we don't want to do anything slow. And then we're focusing on football-specific skills and fundamentals. We cut out all the bullshit. We don't do, like I said, county fairs and all these crazy conditionings and all this stuff that we used to do that didn't help us win. We alternate between high and low CNS days. We call them sprint days, non-sprint days, and we'll get into more details. But we're not just going to start on Monday and see how much we can throw at our kids between Monday and then hope on Friday that whatever we did through the week actually helped us, when in a lot of cases it really doesn't help us. And so when we talk about max velocity sprint, that's totally different than running wind sprints at the end of practice or running 20/40s at the end of practice. We are timing, and we are running them at max velocity. And then Friday night, obviously, we want to be a sprint day. We don't stretch, and we don't do any crazy ass long warm up, which a lot of us used to do in football. And I'm sure Tony will talk more about this. We do RPR and speed drills, and that's how we start practice. We do no traditional conditioning anymore. We cut that out, and we'll get into more of that. Our practice is choppy. You got to be able to rest in order to continue to play at a level of practice that you are wanting to, or that 4th or 5th gear, like Coach Holler talks about, instead of trudging on in 3rd gear. We do something different than a lot of people do at the small school. We have a school of 242 kids. We get somewhere between 47 to 55 kids out every year, but we try to play as many one-way guys as possible. That is a goal of ours, which most people don't. And I'm going to talk to you about substituting and playing one-way guys and how we make it work. But if you want your guys to be healthy and fast and fresh, and you want to get through a 14-game, 16-week season, if your goal is to play for a state championship, you can't play Ironman 11-person football all year long because you think, everyone has depth issues at every level of football. How can you handle that, and what can you do? We'll talk about that. And then, if you don't get anything else, what you do on Monday shouldn't ruin Tuesday, and what you do on Tuesday shouldn't ruin Wednesday, and sure as hell what you're doing Thursday shouldn't ruin your Friday night game, or the weekend shouldn't ruin that. And those are some of just our basic things that we do that we'll get into. And then our big blocks, if we're talking about our big blocks, is that minimum effective dose. So we're always on this hunt to keep our guys at a level where they are just pissed off and they are just chomping at the bit to play on Friday. Not so wore out that they're go home and sleep for 2 hours after school on Friday so they have enough energy to come back on Friday night and play in the game. So we're trying to find that level, and that's why we're the Panthers, and we talk about that a lot, that we want to give them a taste of it, but we're trying to find that dosage that gets them excited for Friday night. And then we want to pare everything down. And this is our last big principle. We believe in that Pareto principle, that most of the success we're going to have is going to come from 20% of what we do, not from, this huge playbook and all these things. And so I asked our offensive coordinator after this last year, because we're not messing with the numbers and figuring out exactly what 20% is, but we know what our base offense is and our base defense. And so he went through to every play call, including any shot plays and anything that we ran maybe one time. And so we had 39 different play calls on the year. 20% were these 8, and these 8 were 77% of our offense. And a lot of them are blocked the exact same. And so that's what we try to do. And that allows us to play fast. It allows us to play multiple people, because we're not asking, one guy to shoulder the load and throw for 5,000 yards or whatever the scenario is, where if that one person goes down, we're all screwed. And so whenever you're adding things into your football team, you have to ask the question, what's it going to cost you in time? What's it going to cost you in effort in order to get that in? And can you replicate that on Friday? And so that's kind of just the basics of what this sprint football looks like in our program. And Tony's going to get into some of the science behind it. And so I'm going to stop sharing here, and I'm going to let Tony take over.
Let's talk about process. I love talking about process. Football is the most traditional sport. I think it's the most many things sport. It's the most religious sport, the most military sport. It's the most male sport. There are many things that make football really, really unique. Football coaches are copycats. They do what football coaches have always done. When I think, I can remember every football practice I was ever in the mid 70s, and it looked just like the football practices that I was coaching in 40 years later. Great assistants are really, really loyal people. And so they buy into the head coach's ideas, and that's what perpetuates all the bullshit. It perpetuates the good stuff too, but it perpetuates the bullshit, something that we need to get rid of. Steve Jobs said successful companies try to replicate their success. Of course they do. Just like coaches try to replicate their success. Gee, we were conference champs last year. Okay, so they assume that everything they did in practice was the reason why they were conference champs. And Steve Jobs is saying, no, it really isn't. Some of the things in your process may have led to that conference title, but some of the things you may have won in spite of what you were doing. And so I think it's really important for us to think about those things, to separate the wheat from the chaff in practice. We really should be progressing by designing new stuff, by analyzing, by implementing, experimenting. I think when we make a mistake as a coach, we learn 10 times more than when we copycat something. Mistakes teach us a ton. Science is, I love this. Science is the belief in the ignorance of the experts. Experts have always been wrong. But I believe that the best ways of coaching football or coaching track have not yet been found. Extreme results never come from centrist thinking. If you want to play it safe as a coach, I don't think you will ever have extreme results. Oh, sure, you're going to have some great teams when you have great players, but you will never get those crazy results unless you're willing to be different. Now, what is the process of modern football? I think we could just read through all these posters, and I think we've seen all of these. I see it on Twitter every day. Sore as hell and back for more. No pain, no gain. Train insane or remain the same. This is the process of American football. Like it or not, I personally, I think it is detrimental to football, and we'll talk about that, but this is the process. And why is it the process? It was because most football coaches were slow guys who worked their ass off in the weight room. They came early, stayed late. They loved their coach. They loved their experience. And because of that, they became coaches themselves. And who were their favorite players? Guys like them. They like those try-hard guys. Now, the cats, those fast twitch athletes, they're kind of a pain in the ass. These grinder type football coaches don't love the cats, but we all know that you need everybody on a football team, and you better learn how to coach cats. There's three things that win in football: power, speed, and misdirection. By misdirection, we're talking about offensive schemes, plays, defensive schemes, stuff like that. So what do we do well? Well, our power grade is about an A+. Football teams are typically weight room focused, weight room priority. I think Plainfield North's weight room says champions are born in the weight room. That's like huge. Champions are born in the weight room. S&C people at the college level are just crazy. Now, I would even question that maybe we're too good at power. At misdirection, I think we're too good as well. Football coaches spend their lives doing really, really smart things. Now, speed-wise, that's a little bit different. I'd say love of speed is A+, but we need more than just a love of speed. We need to learn how to maintain speed throughout the season, which Brad's going to talk about. And I would say we even need to think about increasing speed. We do not want to be slower as the season goes on. Why is speed so important? Well, first of all, because it's neglected. But secondly, the faster you are, the more powerful you are. So speed actually amplifies power. Now, this slide is kind of out of place here, but I think it's important that we mention at least that speed is not only important for cats. Speed is also important for big cats. Offensive tackles who go to the NFL Combine, the best 20 offensive tackles in the nation, they're all 6'5", 312, and they all have long arms. Well, the ones that run the fastest get drafted the highest. This guy here ran a 4.85. He was also a state champion thrower in Iowa. And yeah, he goes in the first round. So I think it's important that we don't separate our guys. We want to train even our big guys like cats. Speed also amplifies misdirection. No matter what you want to do offensively or defensively, you would rather have fast people. Fast people will make you look like a much smarter coach. So speed, unlike power does not increase speed. Misdirection doesn't increase speed, but speed actually has such a great impact on everything we're trying to do.